Welcome back to the Folkestone Status Show with me, Kay McLaughlin. Joined in the studio now by my second guest, who I've been having a fascinating chat with off air. I'm joined by Debbie and Andy. They are here because they've produced a book. They're local authors. They've produced a book and published a book called Dateline Haifa that came out on the 16th of July, I believe. Good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Academy FM Folkestone. Welcome to the Folkestone Status Show. I believe that you contacted me, didn't we? We made connections, didn't we, regarding this book? And then you also told me something that was fascinating, that you're both air hunters, which is H-E-I-R. Just make sure I spell that correctly. And for people who don't know what that is if someone dies and they don't leave a will or there's no living relatives, their information is produced on a list, I believe, which is called the, you pronounce it because I might get it wrong.
Bonificantia listings.
Bonificantia listings. And then what happens is they just give a name, don't they? Don't they give a name in an area of where these people...
Or possibly date of birth, date of death. And that's about it. Maybe with a guess whether they're married or not.
Area, if you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what you do is you have to try and decide to try and then find any living relatives that could be entitled to a share of this money, and then you charge them at the end, although it's not the fact that they have to pay you, but you do all the work to try and find them and say to them, surprise, your great uncle Bert died and you're entitled to millions or something. That's how the dream is, isn't it? And then they go, thank you very much, I'd like to give you this much for all your hard work. So the two of you, so this is the job you currently do. I was chatting to you both off air as well to find out more about you. Andy, I will start with you, as you're to my right. You originated from this area. Did you grow up in the Folkestone Hythe area?
I grew up in Hythe.
You grew up in Hythe. And then you became a rock star.
Well, hardly a rock star, more like at the coalface of rock and roll, playing the terrible gigs with the terrible food.
But you got to travel everywhere, didn't you?
I could travel, play with some good people like the Choir Boys and Gunn and... Deborah Bonham, the sister of John Bonham from Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Play with Zach Wilde from Ozzy Osbourne's band, and he and I got very, very, very drunk on Jack Daniels one night.
I see you were proper. Did you throw any TVs out of hotel rooms?
No, I did throw a stripper out of a hotel room once, but that's not a story.
Not the window, though, hopefully.
No.
So you're a bit of a rock star. You've come back to live in this area, and you were a rock star, and now you've become an air hunter. Debbie, you came from this area. You're a former Folkestone School for Girls.
Yes, I did.
People from a what would it be called? What's the old school?
It was called Folkestone Grammar School for Girls.
Okay, same as now, but it's a term, isn't there, for the old... So they call them something if you're a former pupil, don't they? I can't remember off the top of my head. So you were a former pupil.
An old fogey.
And you had a job as an investigator in London.
I did.
How did you get into that, actually? I forgot to ask you how you actually became an investigator.
I worked for Lloyd's of London, the big insurance market.
Okay.
I was taken on as a graduate to look into the wrongdoing of various underwriters and brokers. And then, of course, the huge scandal broke out in the early to late 80s. And then, really, after that, I had to chase members of Lloyd's for their assets and try to find them sometimes if they disappeared.
So then you set up your own... Did you set up your own investigation, or you became...
I worked for a private investigation company for a while as well in the West End.
And then you came back
and
down.
Then I set up on my own.
Oh, are you still doing that?
Not so much. It's more turned into historical investigation.
Which is how the two of you became involved, because also, Andy, you were saying you're an absolute history buff.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person who goes to Egypt and ends up coming back paler than when I went, because I'm in the tomb all the time or underground.
Do you know what? You would have actually loved... Dave Sharp is the station manager here. He's on holiday at the moment. He's trained in that. He's a trained archaeologist, and he was out in Cairo. He grew up in Cairo as a child, because his dad worked out there. And he's actually on holiday at the moment in Crete, and he actually took a picture inside some caves there and said, like, no gift shop, there's nothing there, just how it was thousands of years ago in this huge cave. So you two could have talked for absolutely hours if he'd been there.
Could have bored Folkestone to death.
Yeah, you could have. No, I'd have let you go off air, trust me. You haven't heard Dave Sharp talking, you would have gone off air. So you've got a history background, you love, like, you're fascinated by that. You've got the investigative background. So you both work as air hunters, but you're different companies, but you collaborate together, I guess.
We do.
What's the biggest sort of one you found? Is there one that you just think that's our big one? That was probably the best one. Is there one that you can think of at the top of your heads?
Ironically, the one on which the book is based.
And the book,
Yes.
so that's actually good. So what you did has actually led to you writing this book together.
It has.
And tell us more about this.
Anyone who works as an air hunter, and believe me, there are lots of us, they will very happily tell you that they come across enough material when they're researching to fill dozens of libraries. And so we were researching one afternoon, and it can get a little bit deadly, quite frankly. They'll vouch for that too. You find yourself disappearing up blind alleys, bashing your head against a brick wall, and we'd had an afternoon like that. And we thought, why not write a novel? Why not just do it?
And then you had to think, what are we going to base it on?
And then we had this case that was rumbling on. A lady who'd, long and short of it, she'd married an Englishman. She was Austrian Jew. They lived in France. She disappeared in the 1940s. It transpired she'd been transported to Auschwitz, to the extermination camps. And her husband had survived the war. And her estate, such as it was over here, which was held in a British bank, went to him. And he had died in 1948, the year the novel opens. And we found his only surviving relative in Australia, who benefited from the lady's money in the long term.
So if she died during the war, he died in 48, how come it took so long for the information to come up?
It's often banking secrecy, from what I understand and from the experience I had at Lloyd's of London. The banks had tied themselves up in secrecy laws. And so it was only really in the 90s that a lot of them began to release their information.
So they'd held this money, living off the interest, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
They had.
All this time.
They had.
Yes.
And then realised, actually, then they were told that, no, you actually need to declare, what's being held and who it belongs to. And then, so they must have had a lot of money held by people...
In a similar position.
Yeah, that could have died a long, long time ago. And they've just held on to the money because they've never made the effort or never bothered to try and find who the person could be, even though they couldn't possibly be alive after the length of time. Since they've had the money. So this was the actual one that spurred you on to the book. How did you think? How did you suddenly think this has to be our book? This is how we have to focus on, because this is so fascinating.
I just think there was the great story in it. It was very odd. An Englishman moving to France in the early 1900s to be a farmer, of all things, south of Paris, marrying an Austrian Jewish lady. I mean, it sounds like something out of a bad script. But we thought it was a great script, a great story. And then with my family's experiences that I could draw on, with deportation and so on, we thought we had a story to tell. And plus, post 1945, the world was very fluid, a time for adventurers and basically ripping yarns. And we thought we could write one heck of a ripping yarn, because it's such a fluid world, it's been turned upside down.
Is the lady, she the main character?
No.
No.
Okay.
She's just an inspiration.
She's, I suppose, at the beginning of the thread. And we also thought, what if there had been a will?
Yes.
Hidden somewhere. What if that could be found? What if someone had found it?
Oh.
And they got the money to the people that Jonathan and Louise, our characters in the book, are called. If they got the money to the people they really would have wanted it to go to. And that's what Dateline Haifa is based on.
So Haifa is actually in Israel, isn't it?
It is.
So you've got here, the main characters in it are Mark Gunn and Sylvia Fordred. How did you come up with the names?
I just like the name Gunn, and I think I've been listening to the band Gunn for some reason at the time, far too often. And I thought, well, let's call him Gun.
That's it.
He's short, sweet and simple, and he likes a punch-up, so...
Oh, love it. So that's his character. And what about Sylvia? Was that your choice? Did you get to choose her character?
I did. And Fordred is a name in my family history. It's a Kentish name.
I've never heard of that before. It's a really unusual name, actually, as well, isn't it?
It is.
Don't hear it a lot. So they're private investigators, and they're given an assignment which is very different. And what's the assignment that they're given? Are you allowed to tell that, or is it a spoiler for the story?
Basically, very simple terms. A gentleman has been coming back to England every year for his affairs to be seen to by bank and solicitor and so on. And in the summer of 1948, during the Olympics, he does not turn up, and there's no reason why. Nobody knows why. And they're commissioned because because of the standards of the time. The institutions do not want police involved, so they go to Sylvia and Mark.
Private investigators. And that's it. And they head off to Naples. They go over the channel, don't they? Off to Naples and then to Haifa. And then it says here, so to face an uncertain future. So is it a case of they're trying to find someone then? That's what they're doing? It's like...
well, they're getting involved in something that is much bigger than them. They don't realise what they're getting involved in.
You don't want to give too much away, do you? In case there's any spoilers or
No.
anything. So how long did it take you to write this book together?
I honestly don't remember, because it was going backwards and forwards. So it wasn't actually that long, was it?
Around 4 months.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was really quick, considering there's two of you. I have a lot of local authors on this show. We were talking about one earlier, Charlie Gallagher. He's a serving police officer, but that's his pen name.
Yes.
And he just knocks them out like that, you know, like Bush. He can, you know, and Karen, who was in earlier, who reviews all local books, and she's involved with local writers. She said, yeah, it took him quite a long time, this one. It took him about 5 months. I was like, a long time? Because he can literally sit down. So for the two of you to do that quickly, was there a lot of emailing to each other, or did you actually sit together and work out?
Basically emailing, pinging it backwards and forwards. So Debbie would write something, ping it over to me, and then I would run with it, and then
see what it was,
and write a section to follow on, then ping it back.
Did you actually sit down together and plan out what the story was going to be beforehand? Did you say, right, these are the characters, this is what's going to happen, and work out how you're going to go? Or is it literally a case of Debbie would send her bit, like you said, you would think, oh, well, I think they could do this now, and I'll write that bit back? And
I think we drew in a lot of our knowledge of history and so on, but we wanted... It's like I've written a novel previously, and I knew the last line of the book. So it's how to get to the last line of the book.
Yes.
And I think maybe in this we had an idea what the last line of the book was going to be.
So you started with the ending, and then
mentally,
and then worked your way backtrack to say, how did we get to that point? How did we get to that final line?
Yes. Yes, you have that in mind.
Yeah, it's in mind.
Because it's always interesting to me how people write, but just have the patience. And I always say to some authors, you know, my concentration level is, and I get distracted, or there's a butterfly, I'm off, you know. So to actually have the determination to sit there and the willpower to sit there and do it, did you find that hard? Did you find it really easy? The two of you are very blasé about this, like, yeah, batted a few emails across, and we published a book, basically.
We found it pretty easy.
There we go then, see? These authors out there are struggling, are going to go, we hate you two, we hate you two.
They probably are, but I think what helps is this heir hunting and probate research work.
Yeah.
Because we are all the time having to formulate hypotheses and thinking, well, I wonder if that is the family. Could she have done X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, and then tie them all together and try and work it all out.
So essentially the book is a giant what if.
Oh, sounds really fascinating, actually. If people want to... It's been published, hasn't it, on the 16th of July, it came out, according to this. If people want to buy it, you've got an actual pen name. You've decided to do D.A. Kent, haven't you? What's the D from?
Debbie.
Oh, of course, and the A. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's not too hard to work out, actually.
Because of where we're living.
Yeah,
Kent.
do you know what? Actually, I feel really stupid now. I should have just said that was obvious, wouldn't it? So, D.A. Kent is your pen name that you're writing together under. It's been published on the 16th of July. Available, where can people purchase it from? Is it online? Is it on bookshops or...?
Amazon.
Amazon, so you can get it off Amazon. So what's the plans next with this book? Have you, what would you like to do? Would you like, I always ask this to my local authors, would you like to see it put into film or TV? Would you like to see a film of it? Have you thought about that?
I like to see a film of it, yeah.
And this is what I always love, because they all say, now, who have you thought of as the characters? Because you know, every author that's come in and you say to them, would you like to see this in a film? They go, yeah. Do you know who the character is? Yes, I know exactly who the would be. They've got it in their head. Do you know who you would want to star? Have you not thought about this, who you would think to be the main characters, or have you not done this yet?
Have to give some further thought to it.
You haven't thought about it, Debbie.
I've got one for the main character of Mark Gunn.
So you know, who were you allowed to say? You're going to say who you would like it to be?
I would be thinking of Tom Hiddleston.
Oh, yes. Actually, and he would be perfect, because he can do all sort of different eras, can't he? He's got that appearance.
He looks like he could be from the 40s.
Yes, definitely. He sort of matches. He's a really good character actor, isn't he? So you've got yours. And you haven't got one for your one.
Not yet, but we're working on it.
Oh, Debby, I thought you would have planned that already.
No.
So you've written this book together. You're both air hunters as well. Is there plans for another book that you're going to write together?
It's written.
Already?
And what's the second book going to be? Or have we got a title, or have we got a theme, or have we got a storyline?
It's really following on from Haifa.
So you're doing is it the same characters?
Same characters,
yes.
yeah.
So you're hoping to produce a series with the same characters?
We are.
We've got a third one. We've already starting the sketch work on a third one set in China.
Wow.
With the same characters.
Are you trying to hope to go out and do some research out there, that maybe a publisher will pay you to go out and do the research in China?
Yeah, I'd be quite happy with that.
Fingers crossed,
volunteer.
yeah.
We'd be happy.
Yeah, or they could send me elsewhere to LA if they like to do it.
You've been to LA loads. So this is the first one, so hopefully you can have a new series. If they want to find out, as you two as authors, people want to find out more about you two, where should they go to read about your background, or, your books and things like that? Have you set anything up yet, or is this just
We've set up a Facebook sort of publisher's page called Weald and Strand.
Okay. So WEALD
EN. And then Strand, STRAND.
Weald. I'm just typing it out on Facebook now to see if I can find it on here. Weald and Strand. There we go. So Weald and Strand publisher.
Give it a like.
So if you go, oh yeah, I am liking it. Look, there we go. Live on air, I've just liked the page. I'll find out more about that. So there's going to hopefully be a series. Do you know where the next one's going to be set? Because this one is obviously travelling across France and to Italy. To Italy and then on to Israel. Have you got? So you said about China, didn't you? Of one of them, and the second one.
That's a later book.
Third one. Oh, I'm getting confused. There's so many books.
The second one is still set in Europe plus North Africa.
Okay, and the same sort of era, sort of time.
Oh, it's literally following on. It's almost like
Part 2.
This one stops and the second one starts the next day.
Excellent. So, people want to find out more about this book. It's called Dateline Haifa. It is written by Debbie Jones and Andy Paul. If you go onto Facebook and type in Wealden, WEALDEN, Strand, that is their Facebook page, and all the information about there is going to be on there about all your books and future books that you're going to publish as well. Also, hopefully you're going to get in touch with Karen, because she's doing a Fringe Book Festival, and you're sure she'll get involved. She'll probably book you to be guest speakers at her monthly guest author thing at the Chambers coffee shop as well. So if you want to let me know when your second book comes out, if there's any news on this, if you get a film, a publishing deal with a film deal or something, please let me know and we'll come back and chat to you about that. And please update me about your second book. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, really interesting. Could have spent hours chatting to you both.
We could.
To find out more. Lovely to meet you both, and thank you for coming on to Academy FM.
Thanks for giving us the time.